Good afternoon, parents. I am so excited to get to share some information with you regarding our upcoming trip to Budapest, Vienna, and Prague. I am going to be giving quite a bit of information this morning, and so I did want to remind everyone before I begin that all information that is shared today or has been previously shared is available on our trip website, which is linked in that email I just sent to you. So as we get closer to the trip, this will be our main hub to make sure we have access to all of these resources at any point. But as always, you are more than welcome to reach out and email me if you have a question at any stage. So what we are going to be looking at today is a little bit more information about what to actually expect for this trip. And the first thing I wanted to do was make sure we had some important dates in our calendars. So as you can see at the bottom of my screen, we do have our final trip dates. We will be leaving DFW on June 21st, and we will be returning to DFW on June 27th. I should have flight information in early May, so I will send that out in an email as soon as I receive it, just so you all can start planning your day around it. But right now, we want to make sure that we all have those days blocked off in our calendar for our travelers. Additionally, we are going to be talking about a few different things, some additional dates, what to look at for travel documentation, revisiting some expectations that I'll be framing for our travelers at their next student meeting. We'll revisit the conversation about money on tour, talk about earning credit, and then we will wrap this up with a list of parent to-dos. So first, a little bit as a reminder, we will be visiting with your students Budapest for 2 nights, Vienna for a night, and Prague for 2 nights before then departing back to come home. Here are the most important upcoming dates between now and departure. So on May 12th, you'll see that we have a deadline for several of the items that I'm going to mention in this presentation. And I will be collecting these items at our next student traveler meeting at 4:15 in my classroom. So if your student cannot attend for any other reason, you or they are welcome to email me and we will find a time to hand these things off. I do ask that any student who can attend does attend because I'll also be collecting their rooming preferences and a few other things from them at that point. June 9th will be our next big date for both travelers and for parents. So as you can see here, we host something called Europe Camp, and this is where the students get to meet each chaperone, and they will rotate through stations with each chaperone, where we will train them on safety when traveling in a big group. We'll give them examples of how to pack efficiently so that they can fit many things into a smaller space. We do a couple of icebreakers so they feel more comfortable with one another. And so this is going to be from 2:30 to 6 at the Geyer Freshman Center. And we'll conclude that evening with our final parent pre-departure meeting. Now, this meeting is going to be in person. This will be an opportunity for the other chaperones and I to go over the paperwork that you've turned in up to that point. Make sure that if your student has any additional prescriptions between now and then, that we have that added in. And then we'll be going over some final logistics for where to drop them off at the airport, etc. After that, we have an optional virtual packing party scheduled for June 18th from 6 to 7. This is a come and go as needed, totally optional for you or your student to hop in. What we found in the past is a lot of times students don't know the questions that they have about packing until they're actually packing. And so while I would love to think that we all start packing for trips very early, the reality of it was last year that a lot of students were packing the 2 to 3 days prior. And so I wanted to make myself available for any student and parent who wants to ask questions during that time. Lastly, of course, we have our travel dates on here from June 21st through the 27th. Moving right along. In that email that I just sent, you'll see a link for a health and medical form for your traveler. Please be as detail-oriented on this as you can. This helps the other chaperones and I just to have an idea of any students that we need to keep an eye on during the trip. We want to make sure that, if your student has a prescription that needs to be refrigerated, that we request that now. If they have food allergies, I want to be very aware of what their situation is. And we do ask that adults coming on the trip, so chaperones and parent travelers, also fill out a form. And this is only coming to me and the chaperone team. It is not going to EF. And so this is, I know the adults traveling with us, I do not intend to be in your business in any way. I do want to make sure at the very least that we are aware of any like medicine allergies you may have if there was an emergency and your emergency contacts. So adults who are coming on this trip, if you have any questions, please reach out and I am happy to help. You'll also see in the email that I shared some instructions on how to join the parent remind group. I promise I will not be spamming this group message. This is just the most efficient way for me and the chaperone team to share information quickly with you while we travel. So in the case that we have all safely boarded our flight, I'll probably send a remind message. When we get to our destination, I will send a remind message. I do try to be cognizant of the time difference so that we're not sending you all messages at 3 in the morning Texas time. But we want to make sure that when it comes to travel, when it comes to when we've touched back down in DFW, that parents are aware in a timely manner of anything that is occurring logistically on our trip. When we talk about flight reminders, we are asking all travelers to try to fit everything into one carry-on size bag and a personal item. And the reason we do this is because when a traveler checks a bag, it increases the chance of them being separated from their luggage. And this is a short trip, and we're visiting several countries within that short trip. And so we just don't want a traveler to get separated from their luggage and not have any of their clothes for a week. It makes things a lot quicker in transitions. It makes things a lot quicker if we have a layover to just grab our luggage from the top compartment and be able to all go immediately. So again, during our Europe camp, we'll be sharing some tips with travelers on how they can accomplish that goal. The seating assignments on the flight will be given to us randomly. Typically, EF books us a block of seats, and there may be a couple of outliers. So we do allow students to switch with one another, and our rules are just as long as they're not inconveniencing any other traveler on the flight or inconveniencing anyone within our group, we are fine with them switching once we are on the aircraft. And so last year, a lot of students, they kind of planned it out as we were getting on to see if they could maneuver it to sit by their friend group. But honestly, by the end of this trip, all of our students will be well acquainted with each other anyway. So a lot of them really just enjoy getting to know new people on the flight. When it comes to in-flight meal requests, if you're a student or if you're a traveler and you have food allergies, those do not come through EF. The individual passenger is responsible for communicating that to the airline up to 3 days prior to takeoff. So I do recommend not only for travelers with food restrictions, but for all travelers that they bring snacks, protein bars, things to help keep them full for any periods of transition. And I think it's a very good idea for those with food restrictions to have a few snacks on hand that they know meet their dietary preferences. When it comes to travel documentation, all of you have submitted your passport to the EF portal, and I thank you for that. That is a huge checkpoint for our trip. So we all already have our valid passports. And while we will not be needing visas for this trip, I am asking that parents fill out this parental authorization form that's in the email, and they can send those signed forms with their students on May 12th to that student meeting. Hungary sometimes requires just parental approval if they find that a student is traveling with an adult who has a different last name. So it'll be very obvious to anyone in the airport what we're doing. We'll have a bunch of EF backpacks and we'll obviously have teachers and chaperone groups, but my whole approach to an international trip is we want to be very high maintenance in the preparation so that we can be very low maintenance on the actual trip and just enjoy time spent with our students, knowing that we have everything documented that we possibly could. EF does have a portal they wanted me to remind you all of, and it looks like this. You can go and you can log into your students' EF portal to see if there are any to-dos there, but please rest assured, we will not be boarding an airplane with your student without having every single duck in a row. So you will also hear from me if you happen to have any paperwork outstanding before we leave. As a reminder, when we get to our first destination, we will be met by an employee of EF called our tour director, and this individual will be with us 24/7 from the time we touch down to the time we come back to Texas. So they really are the one of the biggest culture makers of the trip because they know these areas very well. They do this all the time. They are in the hotel with us if there's an issue. They're on the charter bus with us. And again, this just really allows our teachers to be mentally present and enjoy the trip with our students so that the teachers can catch any other issues that may arise, like homesickness or stomach aches. Our tour director is wonderful and trained to handle emergencies. They're also the ones calling ahead to restaurants and letting them know what our ETA is. They are wonderful, wonderful people. When it comes to meals and expectations, I'll be going over a lot of this with our students in our May meeting. It's good to keep in mind that the typical American portion tends to be larger than a lot of portion sizes abroad. So that's another tally for students bringing protein bars or little snacks in their bags that they can snack on through the day. EF will provide 2 meals for us, and that's typically a meal out. And then if we are at a hotel that offers breakfast, that typically tends to be where they have us eat breakfast. And then there will be one free meal, free time meal throughout the day, typically lunch, where students can decide whether they want to, try a McDonald's abroad or whether they want to try a nicer restaurant. And really, our students were pretty 50-50 last year. A lot of them during free time really wanted to prioritize shopping for souvenirs instead of sitting down to a nice meal. So we have a minimum number of students that they'll be able to travel with during that free time, and the chaperones kind of popcorn around and check on the different groups during that time. As far as hotels go, we will be receiving our hotel information later. I will share that with you at the final parent meeting. But it's good for students to keep in mind that also when traveling abroad, some of the hotels may look a little different than what they may be used to traveling in the States. So sometimes this means that air conditioning is not as readily accessible, although a lot of the windows open. Sometimes it means that there is free Wi-Fi and sometimes there isn't. And then one thing we want to keep in mind is that the elevators in these hotels tend to be really small. Some of our students took some really funny selfies in the elevators of the hotels last year because they were only able to fit about 2 people in there with their luggage. It was just a tinier space than they were used to. So that's another good thing about just bringing on smaller luggage and bags is that we, hopefully can be very mobile with those. When it comes to visiting Europe, I will talk about many of these items with our students at Europe Camp, but air conditioning sometimes isn't as common as it is in Texas. We really want to make sure that students stay hydrated, and we are also going to be training them on safety in numbers. One point for parents on this slide is that all travelers should have their own adapter. So even if you're coming with your student, we would recommend against just sharing one power cord because typically once we leave for the day, we are gone for the day and we don't come back to the hotel until we all fall asleep very quickly coming back. So it is helpful for each traveler to have their own adapter and then additionally their own power bank so that they can keep their phone charged while we are exploring for the day. When it comes to luggage and packing, we've already talked about the first 2 topics, but if you're interested in exploring EF's recommended packing list, you can scan this QR code up here on the top right. The chaperones and I are developing a bit more of a trip-specific packing list that'll be shared with students in May. And we'll also, of course, be going over it at the upcoming parent meeting in June. And of course, we have that Zoom call as well for any last minute questions. But if you just want to browse to kind of get an idea of what you may need, this is a great starting point. We are going to the baths in Budapest. So just a note on bathing suits. We want to make sure that your students are in a bathing suit that you would be comfortable with them being in and that they would be comfortable in. So our dress code for the trip for our day-to-day clothes, we tend to do a modified school appropriate. So we don't want any inappropriate images on shirts. All bellies need to be fully covered. But when it comes to the swimsuit, just, pick a swimsuit out that is reasonable for a school trip. And if you have any other further questions on that, I'd be happy to chat with you about that one-on-one. Okay, when it comes to money on tour, at the student meeting in May, I will be collecting the $85 for our shared tip fund. And as a reminder, parents and chaperones also contribute to this. So this money is collected by chaperones up front so that we can go ahead and convert our money to the appropriate currencies to tip not only our tour director, but also our local guides and our charter bus drivers. So as you can imagine, it's not the safest situation to have 30 tourists pulling out their wallet on crowded streets to try to find the right amount of currency and exchange it. And it's just also awkward for the tour guide to sit around waiting for us to get our money together. So we collect this up front. That way we can just leave and know that it's all in the right currency and ready to go. So we went that $85 per traveler on May 12th. And then in addition to that, you'll also want to talk to your students about budgeting for their daily spending money. They will hold on to their daily spending money. That does not come through a chaperone or an adult. And EF recommends about the equivalent of about $30 to $60 per day while they're abroad. So day 1 and day 7 will be flight days. So, that budget, if you want to talk to your student about your expectation of what they spend at the airports. And then I typed out a guide here for you so that you can go ahead and discuss with your students what their budget is. But keep in mind, we're in major cities. So a lot of the places they go will also accept credit card and debit cards. You do just want to make sure that you let your bank know before they start traveling. One thing to be aware of is that Visa and MasterCard gift cards will not likely work abroad. Neither will like a Starbucks gift card. If they find a Starbucks in Europe, it often does not transfer. So make sure that we are discussing with our students what we are expecting them to spend. And again, not all of this money necessarily needs to be in cash because they'll likely be able to use their card, but it would be wise for them to have some cash on them. EF partners with a group called Till Financial. So a couple of our families used this last year and had a great experience. You can pause this video and look at the details here if you're interested in setting that up for your child. For any student who's interested in earning college credit through their trip, they can email education.department@ef.com to get more information on this opportunity and find out if they can possibly get some additional college credit. There is a fee of $360 for that. And I don't think any of our students actually opted into this last year. So if you do decide to move forward with it, please let me know. I would love to hear about your experience with it. Again, your traveler account can show you our itinerary, any to-dos, anything that you still have due regarding payments. So that's available to you within your portal. And here is our final wrap up. So by May 12th, we would like to have these 5 things in our possession as chaperones. So the things with the asterisk can be sent with your students. So their passport copies are a little overdue at this point, but that is okay. If your student has not turned theirs in yet, you can either email it to me or send it with them physically. We do want these to be exact photocopies, so not like a picture of it. They should have the passport signed already. There's a set of instructions based on their age in the actual passport regarding signing. So look over that. Please send us exact copies, and we keep these on hand in case a student was to lose their passport abroad. The tip money will be due. That's $85 per traveler. The parent authorization form is due. The traveler health and medical form is due, and that's all online, so you don't need to send anything with your student. And parents, we ask that you join the parent remind group by that point. Looking ahead, we have a reminder of just our upcoming dates between now and departure. We're so excited for this trip, and as always, I'm here if you have any questions. I appreciate you all logging in, and we will see you all soon.